The man who hugged a city. In a bustling city where the streets pulsed with the rhythm of hurried footsteps and the air always seemed to shimmer with the energy of ambition, there lived a man named Samuel Turner. To most, he was simply Sam, the quiet, middle-aged caretaker who swept the sidewalks, tended the small park at the city's center, and always wore a faded blue cap. Few people noticed him as they rushed by, their minds consumed by emails, deadlines, or the urgent messages pinging on their phones. But Sam noticed everyone. Sam had lived in the city all his life. As a boy, he had watched it grow from tree-lined avenues and modest brick buildings into a metropolis of glass towers and roaring traffic. He had seen faces change, businesses rise and fall, and neighborhoods transform. Through it all, one thing remained constant: his love for the city and its people, even if they rarely looked his way. Each morning before dawn, Sam would brew a cup of strong black coffee in his small apartment and peer out his window at the awakening city. He'd watch the lights flicker on one by one, and he'd whisper, "Good morning, old friend." Then, slipping on his blue cap, he'd step outside, broom in hand, to greet the world. He started at the square, where the city's oldest oak tree stood guard over a circle of benches. The tree was said to be over a century old, its roots entwined with the city's own history. Sam would gently touch its gnarled trunk, feeling the rough bark beneath his fingertips, and offer a quiet thank you for its shade and beauty. He'd pick up litter, smooth the mulch, and sometimes, when no one was looking, he'd sing to it, soft, tuneless melodies that only the tree and the early birds ever heard. On rainy afternoons, when the clouds turned the city gray and people hurried along with bent heads, Sam would offer his umbrella to strangers caught in the downpour. He'd wait with them at bus stops, sharing a laugh or a story. On hot summer days, he'd bring pitchers of water to the construction workers sweating beneath the sun, and he'd always remember the names of the street vendors who lined the boulevard, greeting each with a smile and a kind word. But still, Sam was mostly invisible, blending into the tapestry of the city. To the hurried crowd, he was just a caretaker, a fixture, like a lamppost or a bench. One winter, a biting cold swept through the city. The park's fountain froze, and the wind howled between the buildings. Despite the chill, Sam made his rounds as usual. He noticed a young woman bundled in a thin coat, shivering on a bench. Her eyes were red, and her hands trembled as she clutched a crumpled piece of paper. Without hesitation, Sam approached her. "Would you like some hot tea?" he offered, pulling a thermos from his bag. The woman looked up, startled, but nodded gratefully. As she warmed her hands on the cup, Sam sat beside her, silent and patient. After a long pause, she began to speak. Her name was Maria, and she had come to the city chasing dreams that now seemed as distant as the stars. She had lost her job, her apartment, and almost all hope. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she spoke of loneliness and the weight of expectation. Sam listened, not with the intent to solve her problems, but simply to be present. When she finished, he reached into his pocket and handed her a small, folded piece of paper. "This helped me once," he said quietly. On the paper, in careful handwriting, were the words, "You matter. Even if the world doesn't notice, you are enough. Keep going." Maria's eyes filled with tears again, but this time, they were joined by a faint smile. She tucked the note into her pocket and squeezed Sam's hand in gratitude. That evening, as she walked away, she looked back at Sam, standing beneath the old oak tree, and felt a warmth stir within her, a hope she thought she had lost. Word of Sam's kindness began to spread, not through grand gestures or viral posts, but through quiet stories whispered from one person to another. The barista at the corner cafe told of the man who always asked how her mother was doing. The crossing guard shared how Sam had fixed his broken bicycle. The florist spoke of the day Sam had brought her a wildflower, just because it reminded him of her smile. Slowly, people began to notice Sam. Children waved as he passed, shopkeepers saved him a cup of coffee. Even the mayor, hearing tales of the city's gentle caretaker, came to meet him one spring afternoon. She found Sam tending a flower bed, humming to himself. "Sam," she said, "you've done more for this city than most ever will. You bring people together, remind us to care for one another. How can we thank you?" Quote, Sam looked up, surprised. He shrugged, shyly. "I just try to give the city a little love," he said. "That's all anyone really needs." Inspired by Sam, the city launched a new initiative called Hug the City, a campaign to encourage small acts of kindness. People were invited to share stories of their neighbors, to look out for one another, to bring warmth and connection back to their busy lives. It wasn't long before Hug the City signs appeared in shop windows, and strangers began to greet each other with genuine smiles. Sam, for his part, continued as he always had, sweeping the sidewalks, tending the park, and listening to the heartbeat of the city he loved. But now, he was no longer invisible. Wherever he went, people stopped to chat, to thank him, to share a moment of connection. The city, once a collection of individuals rushing past each other, began to feel a little more like a family. Years passed, and Sam grew older. His steps slowed, his hair turned silver, but his spirit remained as gentle and steadfast as ever. The old oak tree, now surrounded by beds of tulips and daffodils, became a gathering place for the community. Children played beneath its branches, couples picnicked on the grass, and every so often, someone would hang a note on its trunk, a message of encouragement, a thank you, or a simple, "You matter." When Sam finally retired, the city held a celebration in the park. People from every corner of the city came to honor the man who had hugged their city not with his arms, but with his kindness, his attention, and his unwavering care. As the sun set that evening, Sam stood beneath the old oak tree one last time. He looked around at the faces, some familiar, some new, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. The mayor approached him, placing a medal in his hand, but Sam only smiled, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "This city has given me everything," he said softly. "All I ever wanted was to give a little back." In the days that followed, Sam's legacy lived on. Children grew up hearing stories of the man who hugged the city. The Hug the City campaign became a tradition, reminding each new generation of the power of small acts of kindness. And so, in a city where people once rushed past each other, a culture of care took root. Neighbors looked out for one another. Strangers became friends. And every morning, as the sun rose over the rooftops, someone, perhaps a young woman on her way to work, or an old man walking his dog, would pause beneath the old oak tree, touch its trunk, and whisper, "Thank you, Sam." The lesson Sam left behind was simple, yet profound. You don't need grand gestures or sweeping changes to make a difference. Sometimes, the greatest impact comes from the smallest acts of kindness, a smile, a helping hand, a listening ear. When you love your city, your community, or your world, and offer that love freely, you become a part of something greater than yourself. You hug the city, and in doing so, you invite it, and everyone in it, to hug you back. In the end, Sam taught the city that every person matters. That everyone has the power to be a light, even on the darkest days. And that, together, we can build a world where no one is invisible, where every heart finds a home. And so, the city continues to grow, its streets alive with the hum of connection, its people bound together by the invisible threads of compassion and care. And somewhere, in the rustling of leaves or the laughter of children, the spirit of the man who hugged the city lives on, reminding us all that we, too, can make a difference, one small act of kindness at a time.